Great, thank you. Can everybody hear me okay? Awesome. I wish I was on a hoverboard, but I don't think I have the coordination for that. So what's pretty amazing is I asked that very same question the first time I spoke at TechTO, which was in December of 2014. I asked people, who here has heard of Wealthsimple, to raise their hand, and nobody did. At that time, we were a 3-month-old business. We probably had about 50 clients and maybe 6 or 7 folks on the team. I think what's really cool is at that time, TechTO was also pretty new. You can see that Jason's evolved a lot since then. I had to poke fun at him, I'm sorry. But at that time, TechTO was really new. It was getting about 50 members out in a good month and had 1 event per month. You know, today, you fast forward 2 years, it's pretty amazing. They're drawing 1,500 people to a whole series of events across the country. And I think all thanks to the big vision of Alex and Jason, who have really put this together. So maybe a round of applause for these guys and what they've done. And what's also pretty amazing for me is, like I said, when I spoke here last, Wealthsimple was really new. And the topic I was asked to speak about was building your MVP. You know, how to launch a product, how to do it in the simplest way possible. And I told this story about how the very first version of Wealthsimple was a spreadsheet, which is exactly what is actually in the top left corner. And I thought it'd be interesting to show, you know, in the last 2 years, just how far you can come when you iterate quickly. And so we've gone from, you know, a company that was a spreadsheet and 50 clients 2 years ago to a company today that has 25,000 clients across the country. Just 3 weeks ago, we launched in the US. We won an award last year, which we were really fortunate about, as the best financial services website in the world. And you know, we feel really fortunate about that. And I think all from a spreadsheet that I shared with you 2 years ago, so pretty excited about that. The reason I share it isn't to try and boost up my ego. It's to talk about the theme of my talk tonight, which is about thinking big. I think these are 2 great examples of organizations that do think big. TechTO and Wealthsimple, and while in different ways, you know, what you can accomplish when you do have a big, audacious mission that you're trying to achieve. And I think it's something that we lack here in Canada. I think, you know, we as Canadians are content being really nice, often operating just in our Canadian market. And I would argue it's not enough. It's not enough for us to prosper. It's not enough for us to build a really exciting ecosystem that gets, you know, the best talent in the world to come on and work on some of the biggest challenges here in Toronto and here in Canada. So I'll jump right in. This is one of my favorite books on the topic. Anybody here read this book, Why Mexicans Don't Drink Molson? Looking at Ted, because I probably told him about it 1,000,000 times. So this book talks about how we in Canada have all the ingredients to build global champions in a whole set of different industries. It goes for about 5 or 6. And yet when you think about it, how many truly global companies do we have here in Canada? Not many. And one of the stories it tells that I love is that about the beer industry. Okay, when you think about beer, there are really only 2 inputs that go into making beer, right? Water and barley. And when you think about it, we should be doing really well here in Canada, right? We've got one of the largest fresh water supplies in the world, number 4. And we've got one of the largest barley-producing nations in the world. So why is it, despite having a lead, you know, relative to Mexico in particular, we produce 1/4 as much beer as they do? I think there's a whole slew of different reasons why that's the case, but I would argue one of the big missing ingredients that isn't obvious to people is an idea of naive ambition. Okay, trying to build something crazy big without regard for how hard it's going to be to get there. So when you do think about, okay, what is it that we are actually known for today? I did a little Google search. I said, you know, top international rankings for Canada. Anybody have a guess for what might have popped up? Maple syrup. Number 1 flax producing nation in the world, number 1 maple syrup producing nation in the world, and also the number 1 most curling championships. My wife asked me to put up, we have the greatest handshake, for anyone that caught that last week. Pretty good one too. I would say that this is fun, but pretty uninspiring. So I'd like to encourage us all to change that together. So I thought by doing that, I'd tell you a story about Wealthsimple. So 2 years ago, right about the time when I first spoke at TechTO, when we were a small team of 6 or 7, 50 clients, we had our very first board of advisors meeting. And our advisors asked me the question, Mike, what's the vision for the business that you want to build? Okay, now picture this scene. We're sitting in this tiny little room at our tiny little office. There's 6 of us around the table. You know, some of the folks in that room had built some of the largest financial institutions in this country. And they asked me, what's the vision for the business you want to build? And I told this story. I said Vanguard, one of the largest companies in the investment world globally that I respect most, is a 40-year-old business. It took them 30 years to get to their very first $1 trillion in assets under management. Today, they manage $4 trillion. BlackRock, the largest asset manager in the world, is a 30-year-old business. It took them 18 years to get to their first $1 trillion. Today, they manage 5. I think the next company to get to $1 trillion is going to do it in 15 years or less, and I want to be that company. They just about laughed me out of the room. And I think, in some ways they were right. We were a company that at the time had $1.9 million in financing and had a long way to go to get to, anywhere close to that crazy ambitious dream. But 2 years later, we've got $1 billion in assets, and just 3 weeks ago we launched in the US. And tonight, actually straight from here, I might stop by at the after party for a minute, I'm going to the airport to get on a plane to London, which I'm not supposed to say, sorry Rachel, but may or may not be our next market that we're hoping to launch this year. And I think the only reason we're doing something as crazy as that, in a space like financial services, which I think most people see as crazy hard because it's regulated, you're taking on some of the largest companies in the world as your competitors, is because from the very start we had these global aspirations about the business we wanted to build, and we managed to pull together some of the other ingredients around that to make it possible. So I'll go quickly because I know I'm probably running out here. So it's not about naive ambition alone. There's a few other ingredients I think we have to get right. So there's some basics, you gotta get the execution right too. So one is you gotta make something people want. I love businesses that solve problems for you personally, that you understand. Wealthsimple started because I was working with some friends in California. We sold the business, and the friends I was working with were looking for a way to manage their money. Knowing that I'd been investing ever since I was 12, they asked me, Mike, can you help us figure it out? So I built in that first spreadsheet that I showed you, and they became the very first clients. And it was a problem I was passionate about and cared about, and I think that's what enabled us to understand the problem better than most. So if you're thinking about starting a business, I often encourage you, start with a problem you understand. If you don't have a problem you understand and you're looking for a problem, here are 4 great ideas. Okay, for Canada, we're all talking about how to make Canada successful. These are 4 areas that have a ton of support. Support from the government, from the academic community, from the venture community here. Look for ideas in AI, in quantum, in fintech, in life sciences. These are going to be really hot, really well-supported ideas over the next coming years. We need to win on these. So we need really smart people working on those problems here. Number 2, we've got really amazing talent. Take advantage of it. Like the mayor said, I think we have once in a generation opportunity to actually reverse the brain drain. We lose so many of our talented engineering grads to the US historically. I would argue that it's probably a little more attractive to stay in Canada right now. Let's take advantage of that. Wealthsimple is hiring. You've heard from a whole other slew of organizations hiring tonight. Let's take advantage of our amazing talent to turn great ideas into great companies. 3, you're not going to do it alone. So find great partners. We have an amazing growing community of capital partners. I think in the venture community, there's a whole new set of funds that have launched this year. In addition to that, I often encourage people to think more broadly than the venture community. There's a lot of big, successful companies that are looking to get access to innovation. Our main backer is not a venture fund. Our main backer is Power Financial, one of the largest financial institutions in the country. When you're thinking about raising capital, think pretty broadly about who could support you. There's a lot of companies that are interested in that sort of thing. Great commercial partners, great government partners. I think you've heard an amazing amount of support from the municipal government here with Mayor Tory and his office about what they're trying to do to help startups. In the Ontario government, the Ontario Securities Commission recently launched a new pilot to encourage more exporting of great Canadian fintech innovation to the UK. So take advantage of these great partners. These are some of the ingredients that you're going to need to build really great companies here. And so that's it. I would say get the basics right. Build something people want. Make sure you focus on building an amazing team. And find great partners along the way. And then add that 4th ingredient, a little dash of naive optimism, naive ambition about the business you want to build. And I think if we can do that, we're all going to get a lot further in Canada, and I think we need to do it to win. So thank you so much.
Questions? I think you can use the mic in front of you. It's not working? I'll come run. Not even better.
Thank you so much. That was really motivating. So when did you know that this was it? Like, banks are already doing it, and I'm sure when you started out, everybody said, oh, we always have investment advisors at the bank. Why would somebody come to you? So when did you know that this was it? This is a product that has potential. And what was your, so two parts. So what was your bottleneck? Were you stopping yourself from making it big, or were voices around you telling you it's not worth it?
So to answer your question, I think we are far from figuring this out. And I think that mindset is actually the thing that's helped us get so far. So for instance, we were really lucky and we won that big award last year as the best financial services website at the Webbies. That was 7 months ago, and since then, we've actually torn down our website and rebuilt it from scratch twice. And I think if you think about the way most institutions or most companies would react to winning an award like that, they probably congratulate their design department and tell them, go on vacation, let's enjoy this as long as we possibly can. I don't think that's good enough. And I think when you think about the pace of change across all these different industries we're facing today, it's accelerating like crazy. And you have two options. One is to try and keep up, and one is to try and set the pace of change. I think as an organization, we've decided to try and set the pace, continue iterating, continue moving really fast, and we're a long way away from where we'd like to be. So don't feel like we've cracked the code yet on the product that we're building.
Anyone in the front who has a yellow button can ask a question. So anyone in the front rows want to ask? No? There's also the two podiums should have the mics on too. So any other questions?
Hi. Hey, it works. How much did you have to give up when getting investors in from equity and things like that?
I would say that we did something pretty unique that I wouldn't take as a rule for raising money. I mean, we were a 6-month-old business, and we raised $30 million in funding from Power. We've since raised more from them, and I think we have this wonderful deal that enables us to work with a really large company to build something pretty special. But that's a very atypical arrangement, and if you want to talk about maybe what's more typical, I'm happy to have that conversation as well.
Repeat the question.
How did we make the connection to Power Corp? So this was a really organic thing. So we started the business and we raised a small seed round of funding, about 1.9 million, from a great group of angels in the city. And the week we launched, one of our angels introduced me to Paul Desmarais III, who's kind of works at Power Corp. He's part of the Desmarais family and the leadership team there. And for the next 6 months, we'd get together once a month, for coffee, for lunch, and just talk about the future of financial services, where we saw the industry moving. He's another young guy with a big vision about where it could be. And in 6 months, to one of those dinners, he showed up one time and just said, hey, Mike, we've got the capital, you've got the team, maybe we should do something together here. Then it took another 6 months of negotiating to figure it all out. But it was one of those organic things of trying to connect with a like-minded person that shared a vision for the future of this industry and bonding over that and seeing how we might be able to do something together.
Has it been an angel or a Power Corp value add?
Repeat the question.
So the question was, has there been an angel or a Power Corp value add? Yes to both. Many of our angels are still very actively involved in the business. They've been enormously helpful sounding boards, mentors to me that have built businesses before and to the rest of our team as we've scaled. And Power Corp for sure. I think one of the biggest challenges we face as an organization is 2 years ago when we had 50 clients and no assets, why the hell would anybody trust us with their life savings? How do you know this startup's not going out of business tomorrow? I think our deal with Power lent a huge amount of credibility to our business. We could then say we're backed by an organization that manages $1 trillion globally. We have the support and kind of credibility that comes with that. So it's been hugely helpful working with them and a whole slew of other benefits as well.
One more question. Anyone? Ted?
Fake counselor Ted Graham over here. Mike, can you talk a little bit about when you're breaking into new international markets? You've done some great things with marketing that have broken through the clutter here in different channels and finding options that most people would have overpaid for. How are you going to get into new markets that way?
So Ted might be alluding to the fact we bought a Super Bowl ad last year and this year, which a lot of people thought was crazy. But on some deeper analysis, you actually realize is the cheapest form of live TV advertising in Canada. So it was actually a really smart investment for us. How are we going to replicate that in other countries? We're going to try and do the same. So we actually just launched in the US. We bought Super Bowl ads. Now, we didn't buy what most people know is like the biggest boondoggle in advertising, right? The $5 million national 30-second spot. What we did is we actually looked regionally and said, are the economics the same? And we found 3 markets that are actually significantly underpriced when you think about what a Super Bowl ad on the national level should cost for exposure to the right demographic. So we bought that on the regional level, and it made a ton of sense for us. It was also a great investment. So we're going to keep looking for cool opportunities like that.
Everyone, please give Mike a thank you.